Hello, my name is Liam, and I'll be giving you my first impressions on the Dungeon Defenders Awakened beta. There has been mixed feedback to say the least, but so far, given what we've got, I've been impressed by what the game has to offer, while simultaneously seeing plenty of room for improvement down the road. The question is, will Chromatic Games be able to deliver us a true sequel to Dungeon Defenders 1 with the 3 months they have left? We'll see, but I remain hopeful and eager to play whatever they have in store for us. Now to start off, the very first thing I have to comment on is the art style, seeing as how that is the literal first thing you'll see. Overall, I enjoy what I see, and I really like the art style and design choices. The game feels like Dungeon Defenders 1 was drawn using the art style of Dungeon Defenders 2, and I think it was done tastefully. It's cartoony, sharp, and lighthearted. Honestly, nothing to really complain about with the general aesthetic of the game. Unfortunately, the main issue people are having, as well as myself, are the character models. There's no good way to say it. They're ugly. Even though while you're playing they look fine, as soon as you open the inventory screen, you see where it goes wrong. I won't spend too much time on this as ugly describes it well enough. The models are really shiny. It looks like painted metal or that the gloss on them is too high. They could be fine if they turn that aspect down, but each one has something wrong with them. The squire's face is his helmet. The apprentice's skin looks like a potato, and the huntress and monk don't even look human. In game, they actually don't look bad at all. The shine disappears and they blend seamlessly into the environment. Thankfully, we only see their backs and not their face. The last thing I'll talk about aesthetically is the UI. It looks a little plain and simple, but it's rather clean and feels minimalistic without sacrificing any features. The stats are easy to read and comprehend, and there's a plethora of features that we didn't have before that are extremely useful. The new filtering system is a godsend for checking our loot. The sorting system is a wonderful quality of life, and when you combine all of that with a folder system that should make it into release that we've had in previous games, we have a great inventory to look forward to. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay of DDA. In terms of what's good, the way I see it, it's more about what doesn't stand out as bad. We've had 2 iterations of Dungeon Defenders, if we choose to ignore Eternity, and thus we know how the game should feel. The combat in DDA is nice and fluid, there are mob swords to kill, the new physics-based engine is pretty nice with the ragdolls, there's new loot for us to pick up, and there's towers to build. Fairly standard, and for what Dungeon Defenders is at the core, they didn't mess it up, and there's nothing wrong here. Some notable additions that I want to mention are these overhead symbols for traps and auras. It makes it really easy to upgrade and repair them, as in the past it was fairly difficult to distinguish within an aura trap stack. Another thing that's really nice to play with, but technically doesn't really make much sense, even though I like it, is the fact that everyone is able to double jump. It makes it quite fun to move around in survival regardless of who you are and to kill time. Let's critique the game for a while. I'm not going to be talking about the small details that a lot of people have been complaining about, such as the lack of a forge, the weird minimap thing we have going on with 0 to no functionality, the lack of Control G to start wave, and so on. These are things that I trust and hope for Chromatic Games to address and add to the game. I'm not saying that these things aren't important because they very well are, but in a beta, I can forgive them for not having it, even though it might have been a good idea for it to have been there, as showing us a more polished product would relieve a lot of the backlash. Talking about the criticism that the community is having, and even myself, I think people are treating the beta as if it was the real release and being a little too overcritical with the game. While all the criticism is warranted and mostly right, it mainly comes from the desire of wanting something to be in the game rather than critiquing what we already have. If Chromatic Games wants to deliver us a good product, then there is no doubt in my mind that 99% of the complaints will be addressed. The only issue is that there's 3 months left, which means they have a lot left on their plate. Hopefully, they can get it done. What I'll mainly be addressing are the more meta aspects of the game they have laid out for us, and how it will affect what we know as Dungeon Defenders. Right off the bat, the game feels more like Dungeon Defenders 1 than Dungeon Defenders 2, and I love that. I'm a much bigger fan of the original than the sequel, and it's a relief for me personally, even though that this discrepancy is the most polarizing topic in the community. The way you build, the stats you have to worry about, and even survival mode being back, everything just feels like number 1 right off the bat. It isn't until you get to the finer details where the second game starts to leak out a little bit. The simplified stats, the hero deck, and the mana system. These things all are big hitters when it comes to how the game will be played on a macro level. Currently, there's no elemental resistances, just generic armor. When upgrading becomes a thing, which it looks like it will, this is a big thing to not have to worry about, which will shake up how you choose to upgrade your armor, as allocating points in specific resources means you have to sacrifice in other places. The largest change so far has been the introduction of the hero deck from Dungeon Defenders 2, and it comes with experience share. This is a polarizing topic, and I'm not entirely sure where I fall on just yet. It shortens the time that you play the game drastically and completely changes the early leveling meta. It is quite nice when building to be able to swap to your other heroes so quickly, but I do think it is a good balance choice, however, to not being able to swap in the middle of the wave, as it forces the player to choose between the tower damage boost or being able to run around and be a part of the battle. And finally, the mana system. There's a lack of it. Everyone starts off with an equal distribution of the mana, but during the waves, there's not a lot to go around. Currently, there's no genie, and this could be a good or bad thing, but gone are the days of upgrading everything to 3 stars before the game really starts. This places a lot more emphasis on what you upgrade, and means you'll probably be needing to rely more on front end damage if things can't be upgraded to its maximum DPS. And really quickly, just some small things to complain about. The game is not nearly as optimized and easy to run as the first one was. It's a little worrying because the first game could handle hundreds of enemies spread across a large map while being run on a potato, while this game is already struggling with the few maps they currently have. The mini waves in between the real waves take a long time for enemies to spawn, and it really bogs down the speed of the game, taking an hour to get to wave 15 for a pet, and even several more just to get to wave 25. Even though this game is already proving to be the better spiritual successor to DD1 than DD2 ever will be, Chromatic Games has made quite a bit of game-changing decisions that have the potential to impact the game dramatically. For the good or bad is yet to be determined, as there's just so much content that the community is yearning for and isn't in the game. A lot of the critique basically boils down to, I really wish X was in the game, and I dislike DDA because it's not. As much as I want to try and counter that argument by saying, of course they should be in the game, and it will be, so just relax, I can't confidently say any of that because Chromatic Games only has 3 months to do so much more with DDA. They released their Kickstarter back in March of this year, and it's been 8 months since then. Can I definitively say that some of, if not all, the things that we want should have been in the beta? I don't know. They're so simple that it feels like they should have been. But if you look at it, they had to create a brand new game, both artistically and mechanically, that there was just so much more important things to do instead. Can I also definitively say that these things will be in the game before they release in February of 2020? Of course not. But I hope and want to trust that Chromatic Games will somehow get it done, because a lot of DDA's success on launch is going to revolve around how polished it's going to be, now that we've seen the lack of features with only 3 months left to go. Either way, I've been enjoying the 20 hours I've put into the game so far, and I'm really looking forward to the game's official release. The Dungeon Defenders The Awakened Beta gets a 3 out of 5 from me. The game is a true spiritual successor to the original game, which is very important for me personally. The UI and graphical overhaul is pleasing to see and a breath of fresh air. The new quality of life features are welcome additions to the game as well. Unfortunately, there was a lack of basic Dungeon Defenders features that make the game what it is that we expect it to be in the beta, as well as performance and optimization issues that have to be addressed prior to the game being released. And last but not least, those hideous character models, something needs to be done about them. Overall, it's Dungeon Defenders in 2019. It's what was expected. Nothing super amazing, but nothing that I'm extremely disappointed in. Yeah, it does suck to not have a lot of the basic features of a Dungeon Defenders game, but it's a beta, and in the end, I'm choosing to be very forgiving of that.